Today I'm going to talk to you about how we write a title. It's kind of a big question. Do I put it in italics? Do I quote around it? Do I just capitalize it? And I know that sometimes when we're writing about books or about movies or a CD album that we just bought, we are not really sure how we should be writing that title. So I know that Jeffrey, for one, in this piece of writing, he's writing a movie review and it's based on a book. So he's writing the book title and he's writing the movie title in this review. And he asked me, he said, how do we do this? And he had it underlined and he's like, is that how you do it? Or do you put quotes around it? Or do you do both? What do you do? I thought it was a really great question. So we're going to look at it as a whole because all of us will probably have to do that at some point. So there are some rules for when you underline, and there are some rules for when you italicize, and when you quote, and when you just use caps. So if you look here, I've got several items under each one. When you underline or italicize, that's really the same thing. You're saying the same thing. Usually, when you are handwriting it, you're going to underline, okay? And when it's on the computer or when you're typing it, then you can use your italics, and you can italicize it. This is when it's a whole or a longer work, and you can see some examples here. Books, movies, magazines, CDs, newspapers. Can you guys think of some book titles, movie titles, magazine titles? Symphony. I don't know if you can think of a symphony right off the top of your head. Beethoven's Fifth, or a CD title. What's your favorite music artist? The CD title of that album. A newspaper title like the New York Times or the Orlando Sentinel. You would italicize or underline that, okay? Because they're big pieces and they're complete. Make sense? Yeah. Okay. Now when you use quotes, this is another issue. Do I use quotes or do I not? For parts or for shorter works, you can use quotation marks, okay? You still capitalize, and you still capitalize on the underlining and italicizing. But you would put quote marks around parts of a shorter work, such as a poem. A poem is shorter, okay? A newspaper article is a piece inside of a newspaper. So though we underline or italicize a newspaper title like the New York Times, if there is an article on global warming inside of that, then we would put quotes around it, okay? Short stories, speeches, TV shows, chapters in books, those are all things that you would put quote marks around, okay? Because they're shorter parts. A chapter is a shorter part of a book. Does that make sense to you? Yeah. Okay, good. And when you just use caps and you don't have to underline or italicize or quote, there are a couple instances. If it's a series, and I think you're familiar with the Chronicles of Narnia, right? Okay, and the books inside of that series are The Magician's Nephew or The Horse and His Boy. Those would be italicized, but as a series, you just do the capital letters on the important words, the first word and the last word, just like a title, okay? Also, in sacred scriptures, you would just do caps. The Bible is a great example. The Talmud or the book of Daniel or any of the books of the Bible, you would capitalize book and Daniel. Of, no, because it's a shorter, little unimportant word. Okay? So there are 3 different ways to do it. 4 if you count italicize. But they're the same for the same thing. Is that clear to you? Yes. Okay, so when you're writing about books or any of these things, if you go to a ballet and you write about the ballet, you review the ballet, okay, then you would need to put italics, right? Okay? A big piece, italics are underlined. A little piece, quote, and a series or a sacred scripture, capital letters. Excellent. Thank you, Jeffrey, for bringing that to our attention. So today's lesson is going to be about word choice. And as you're writing all of your pieces, we would like to make sure that we're choosing the absolute best words possible, okay? So there are some really tired words out there. And one of them that I'm seeing repeatedly in your writing is the word said. And we know that said means that they spoke it, that they said it. Said just means said, right? But how can we make that piece a little bit more impactful? How can we get the word said to say so much more, to actually give us an emotion, So what I'm asking you to think about is, look at this sentence right here. What are you thinking, said Sam. Do we know how he said it in the sentence as it stands? No, not really, because he could say it in any way, and because we don't know what his emotion is, we don't know what we should be thinking when we're reading that. So if what you meant for him to do was to say it loudly, or to say it softly, or to say it in kind of an inquiring, questioning voice, or if you meant for him to say it sadly, we don't know that right there. With just one word of a change, we can make this whole thing pop in your writing, okay? So, my first question, think about how you could replace the word said with another word that would make it sound as if he was doing it loudly. Victoria? Roared? Roared is a great one. What are you thinking? Roared Sam. Jeffrey, did you have your?
Yeah. For softly, mumbled.
Mumbled. What are you thinking? Mumbled Sam. Good. Okay, what about inquiringly? Richard.
Asked.
Okay, what are you thinking? Asked Sam. And it's totally different. Okay, Johnny, you said something you have an idea too.
Inquired.
Okay, inquired. What are you thinking? Inquired Sam. Very good. So you can see how you've changed the whole feel of that sentence by changing it to any of these different feelings. What are you thinking? Inquired Sam. Or, what are you thinking? Mumbled Sam. You've got different words that you can put in place of that. Okay, I have another sentence for you guys. That's not true, Josephina said. Okay? There are different ways you can say that. Here are a couple of the things I was thinking we could change it with. Softly, untruthfully, excitedly, painfully. See how it doesn't really work to say, that's not true, Josephina said, untruthfully. What could you say instead of that? It's a little bit awkward if you do the ly words. So who's got some ideas for how we can change said into a more dynamic word? So now when we write, we just don't want to use the word said, she said, he said, she said. That's boring, and you guys are not boring writers. So what we need you to do is to figure out a different word, find a different way to say what you're trying to say, but with one of these words that you've come up with. And I've given you a list of words that you can look at too. Now said is dead. We're not going to deal with that word anymore, okay? Yeah. So you have had a peer conference, have you?
Yes.
Okay, what did they tell you?
They said that I needed a little more details, and some of the words were spelt wrong.
Okay. All right. Which areas did they say you needed a little more detail in?
Like right there.
Okay. And I slipped into the cold atmosphere. That's a beautiful phrase right there. I really like it.
Yeah.
And I really like the way that you have this letter, the letters fluttering down because the word is flutter. That's just very incredible. And your word choice, they crumple and crackle. You've done a really good job with word choice. So if you were to ask me a question after your peer conference, do you have any questions about what you could do?
Does this sentence make sense?
So I soak it all in. Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying because you're talking about keeping it close to you. So I soak it all in slowly. Yeah, I think that you've done a really good job with it. Do you feel like it's a little bit awkward, or?
Kind of.
Kind of?
Like,
okay. What could we do to change it? Would you want to move the word in closer to the word soak?
Yeah.
So I soak in all and then whatever you wanted to say after that?
Yeah.
Okay. I can see how that, I think either way it would sound good, but if you're feeling uncomfortable with it, that would be a good change probably. Yeah. Keep going. You're doing great. Hey, Kayla.
Hey,
So what have you been working on?
I'm working on my third draft.
Okay. All right. You've been going strong. I like your brainstorming.
Oh,
You've
thank you.
organized it very well. Where did you get that idea?
I saw it somewhere. My friend was doing some sort of a draft just like it, so I tried to do something creative as well.
That's wonderful. I think you've got a really good organizational structure that's working for you. Okay, so your story, as I recall, is about you and a jet ski. So have you found some ways to add more detail to what you had written?
I have, like, I described the life jackets that we were wearing, and instead of just like we went down the dock, we ran down the dock.
That
Try to
is
be
a
more
great
descriptive.
change. That is a great word choice change, because went is another one that we've talked about being kind of a tired word. So we ran down the, and we sped away. I like that a lot. And you're changing your numbers, your numbers
I'm
into the
writing them out,
words.
yeah.
Okay, that's perfect. I like how you've put the dialogue too. You've got dialogue to drive your action, which is something else we've talked about. Now, have you thought about your ending?
I haven't really, but I want to make it strong.
Okay, yeah,
End it
that's
well.
that's wise. And maybe brainstorm a couple different endings. Like when we talked previously, I asked you to think about it, and that was just that wasn't quite as much of a direction. So like if you could think of the different possible endings and pick your strongest one out of that, then it's better than just going to it and saying, okay, I need an ending, let me just type out anything.
Yeah.
So if you can think of a few different ones, then choose your strongest. And even ask somebody else, which one of these do you think is the strongest?
Okay.
Yeah, you're really doing well with this story.
Thanks.
And it's a great, I'm glad you chose to do another memoir, because you do them very well.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to stop writing, and we're going to have a chance to share, a few of you, what you have been writing about. So, do we have any volunteers who would like to share what they have been writing? Victoria, great. Have a seat up here in the author's chair.
I thought the suspense would never end. I was lying in the water so full of anxiety when I finally got up the courage to say, "Hit it." The boat sped off, pulling me along with it. I screamed as I was lifted practically into the air. I was frightened as I glided across the water. I couldn't believe it. I was finally skiing. My family yelled and took pictures of me. My legs quickly started hurting from all the work, so I motioned to cut it. When I got back to the boat, I was congratulated on my first time. While my sister got in the water, I couldn't wait to get back in the water. This time, my cousin and I jumped into the water to go tubing on a one-person tube. We wanted to go on a relaxing, slow ride all the way back to the lake house.
All right, so now we are going to help Victoria to see what we saw, okay? So thank you very much, Victoria. That was a great story. And we would like to tell you a little bit about what we heard, okay? So class, was there anything that you particularly liked about this story?
I really liked Victoria's lead when she said, "I thought the suspense would never end, and I wanted to hear more."
Okay, yeah, definitely. That made me want to hear more too. So good job on that, Victoria. Was there anything else that you particularly liked? Jordan?
I liked some of the words that she chose, like sword.
Oh yeah, that was beautiful, wasn't it? I soared instead of I went. That's another one of those better word choices. Good job, Victoria, on that. Anything else that you really liked?
I liked it when she said that she wanted to go on a relaxing, slow ride. I thought that described the ride very well.
Okay, so you could tell after the harrying ride that she had that she just wanted something a little bit slower.
Her emotions were explained correctly and everything. She submitted the right content.
Okay, good. She gave us a lot of her thoughts and feelings. Thank you for that, Victoria. That's important in a memoir. And she did it in a way that we understood. Mason, did you have your hand up?
Yeah. I like the way she described how she got onto the raft. She plopped onto the raft.
Instead of just got, right? That's a great observation. So, Victoria, you've done some really good things. Was there anything else? Or, yeah, Richard?
I liked her title because it didn't give the story away.
That's an incredible thing. And isn't it hard to find a good title, you guys? You've
Yes.
tried to do that. Yeah, something that doesn't give the story away. And so, Victoria, good job. We really liked it. Thank you